Welcome to the Career Change Podcast, where you'll discover the frank and practical advice and resources that are already proven to work in the real world when it comes to changing careers or figuring out what business is right for you when you are a smart but likely also stuck, overwhelmed or overthinking person in your mid-30s, your 40s, your mid-50s. I'm your host, Rikke Hansen, a career change advisor, entrepreneur and former corporate HR professional with over 15 years experience of helping thousands of people just like you identify or create careers or businesses that are both meaningful and future-proof. Welcome home. Hey, it's Rikke here, and welcome to episode 23 of the Career Change Podcast. Should I quit my job? Should I quit my job? That's a question you might be asking yourself right now. A lot of people are, or that you'll be asking yourself in the near future if you're looking to change careers or to start your own business. And what I can tell you from having advised a lot of professionals on that questions over the last 15 years is that how and when and why you leave that job is key to ensure that you will have a complete and successful career transition. But I also, as unpopular it is, want to say right up front that quitting your job is not the end point, nor is it necessarily something to be celebrated as sticking it to the man. And here's why that is so important to be aware of. I have seen so many people quit their job at the wrong time, and often way too early on in the career transition process, because they thought or hoped that quitting would somehow give them closure and solve problems. But here's the thing, my friend. Unless you knew exactly what you're doing and what it is you want to do, or you're getting professional advice, it can be highly risky to jump before you even know or only have vague ideas about what else it is that you want to do, what career it is, what business is, or before you have something else lined up to deal with the finances or a plan for that. Because what tends to happen in those cases, when people jump too early or before having clarity, is that people will often blow all of their savings, often on things like travel or fluffy trainings that don't give them any concrete insights or clarity as to what career or business they actually want to transition into. And hence, they end up feeling even more unclear, scared and overwhelmed. And with no job for cash flow, they often end up with massive knee-jerk reactions and sometimes end up in even worse career scenarios, or the risk going back to an even worse work scenario in the profession they try to escape from by resigning too early. Right? You might know someone who did that. And what bothers me is that it's very often these kind of cases that make people think that it's risky to change careers or that it's risky to start your own business. But let's be clear, that's not what those people they did. They just jumped too early with no plan and no clarity. And frankly, that is not what career transitions are about once you reach a certain age. So please, don't let those scary stories put you off. And please know there is a better way. And if it was you, please know there is a better way. Now you've got this episode, I can help you. But this is a really important episode. And I want you to think about it like a baseline episode for a subject, almost like a mini masterclass on a key subject. And in this case, the subject being, should I quit my job? So you want to listen once, I'd recommend at least listen once, and then also listen back again, pen in hand, so you can actually apply what you learn, all right? And also, as always, with the Career Change Podcast, if there is something you want me to go deeper with and elaborate further on in coming episode of the Career Change Podcast, then make sure you're subscribed to my mailing list over at thecareerchangepodcast.com so you can suggest these kind of things. Because obviously there are so many nuances to should I quit my job. I just want to give you a baseline here because I know there's an urgency around it for a lot of people. Also, in case you are new to the Career Change Podcast or to my work as a career change advisor, let me be clear. This episode, I'm always very big on going from vague to concrete. So let's get really concrete. This episode and my life's work as a career change advisor is specifically about career change. and also about entrepreneurship for some people. So this is not about generic career advice or generic job changes. This is specifically about when to quit your job, when you're looking to change careers or to start your own business, because that's a totally different ballgame from generic career advice. Also, furthermore, this podcast is very much geared towards mid-career professionals, smart people in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, my kind of people, my kind of clients. And here's the thing, we can't just move back in with our parents or risk it all overnight, right? People, professionals in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they're often highly risk averse and have quite a few, let's face it, quite a few practical and financial issues to take into considerations, like children, health issues, mortgage, aging parents, you name it, the whole catastrophe, right? And I'm elaborating on this because I find that a lot of career change and entrepreneurial advice out there on the internet, it's often written by young grads in their 20s who have a lot less skeletons in the cupboard and a lot less to lose and who can easily mitigate losses or move back in with their parents if shit hits the fan, right? And also, I want to do this episode because the internet is just flooded with cliched and often way too aspirational or unrealistic advice from like bro-style entrepreneurs or Elon Musk-style entrepreneurs who believe that the only way to start a company or to change the world is to risk it all, sell all of your belongings, go all in from day one, all or nothing. And you know what? From the bottom of my heart, that really bothers me. Because I know for a fact what that means is that maybe you, definitely a lot of wonderful people at a certain age with a certain life, they just believe that therefore it's impossible or unrealistic for them to become an entrepreneur or to start a business or to find a career, a job they love. And it's not. It is absolutely possible. But you need to just make sure you follow advice that has been designed and tested on people just like you. And that's very much what the Career Change podcast is about. So what I'll share with you, especially in this episode, will likely be a little bit more on the more cautious and reality check side of what you might see suggested on social media when it comes to quitting jobs and changing careers. Because I actually, and have for the last 15 years, I make a living to make sure my clients, they actually change careers or they start that business without ending up eating out on a trash can or moving back in with their parents at the age of 45, okay? So in the Career Change podcast, what I'll share with you is what works for real people over 35 in the real world, where things aren't as straightforward as it might be for people who just blog about these things for a living or who talk about how it worked in their case, right? As a career change advisor, I've done this since 2005. What I want to talk to you about here is what has consistently worked for my real life clients over the last 15 years and also right now. So I'm saying this because it means that in this episode, the advice that I'll give you might sound a little bit less sexy than what you might be used to hearing on the internet or on startup bro stickers. All right? So, but it works, and it works for people like us. You can absolutely do this. Having said that, don't get too comfortable either. Because this does not mean that your career transition will therefore be a smooth ride. Because here's the other thing, comfort is the enemy of transitions, right? Especially when you reach a certain level in your corporate job, you've got a certain standing, there's the whole ego involved, all of that shizzle. Of course, a certain amount of risk and uncertainty will still be involved, and you will need to do, as part of your career transition, things that will make you feel uncomfortable because they're new. And of course, a full commitment to really completing this process is required. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Anything you want in life will always have a price. However, what I'm doing here is helping you control as many of the controllables as we can. So my fellow control freaks, overthinkers or multi-passionates, especially those of us in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you are at home here. You can absolutely feel at home here at the Career Change podcast. This advice is for you. It's been tested for many years and also right now on people just like us. So let's do this. My name is Rikke Hansen, and I quit my corporate job back in 2005. So I used to work in human resources and HR for American investment banks in London. I work for Morgan Stanley. I work for Citigroup Asset Management and a few others. And note, I worked in HR. So what that means is I know a lot about quitting jobs or firing people and quitting jobs and hiring people, not just from a personal and also a client perspective, but also from an HR perspective, which I believe is key here. And ever since then, through my online career change consultancy, you can find out more about that over at thecareerchangepodcast.com. I have advised hundreds of private clients and thousands more online as to whether they should quit their job too. But more importantly, I've helped them find or create amazing careers and amazing businesses. It's absolutely possible at any age. So what I want to share with you in this episode is what works in the real world when it comes to how to decide when to quit your job, especially in a world where we still need to make money and have bills to pay. So you get the classic Rikke, no pie in the sky guarantee here, all right? So how about you? Should you quit your job? If you were to ask me that question, Rikke, should I quit my job? One of the first things that I do with my clients is to help them reframe that question. Why? Because asking, should I quit my job, is actually not the most helpful or intelligent way to decide if you are an aspiring career changer or entrepreneur over 30. Instead, here's the question that I recommend that you ask instead that's a lot more empowering. How risky is it for me to stay? So don't ask, should I quit my job? Ask, how risky is it for me to stay? How risky is it for me to stay? And here's what I mean by that. How risky is it actually for me to stay in my current job? If I stay, will that negatively or positively impact my chances of actually changing careers or starting my own business? If I stay, will that negatively or positively impact my chances of actually changing careers or starting my own business? That is what it really comes down to. So elaborate on that as we go through this. Now, in this podcast episode, I'll share 3 classic scenarios with you so you can self-diagnose and make the right decision too. There's obviously, has to be said, loads of nuances, loads of different scenarios that I've come across in my work as a career transition advisor. But these are very much what I call the 3 archetype scenarios that a high percentage of mid-career professionals, they would fit. The majority of my clients are professionals, mid-30s to mid-50s, over 30. Of course, there will be exceptions and more scenarios. So this is just like an initial episode around it. But it's so important to know where you fit. As part of the career transition process, it's key to figure out what is it you want to do next, how much of a change do you need, what's the business you want to do instead, what's the career you want to do instead. But it's also important to figure out, well, what the heck are you going to do about your current work scenario? You need to be highly aware of both. That is literally baked in to all of the programs that I offer over at thecareerchangepodcast.com because that's key. Now, here's the good news and the excuse eradicator. Nobody has to quit their job in order to start their career change or start their own business on the side. Because remember, a career transition is a process. It is not an event. It takes time, and time takes money. So this is the good news for you. Nobody has to quit their job in order to start their career transition or start their own business. The majority of my clients over the years have started on the side, and that's how we reality check this to a large extent. So please just ignore that broad advice like, you got to go all in from day one. You got to sell it all and, you got to jump ship and just go all in. It's like, yeah, that might work for some people. And let's be clear. You got to be all in terms of you got to be committed from day one. It starts with a commitment. But in terms of quitting your job, that is not necessarily where your career transition starts. It's often one of the very last things that you do. The majority of my clients have started their career change, started their business while still keeping down a job because they had the whole catastrophe like we talked about, right? That's just how it works after a certain age. But it also means now there are no excuses for you. You can get started. What this episode is about is making sure you are in the best scenario, the best job for getting started, i.e., how risky is it for you to stay in that job you currently have? So the 3 scenarios I want to share with you now are the ones I most often come across, and I'll quickly run through them. And as I said, if you want me to elaborate, let me know. They are in no order of importance or quantity. So there is the toxic scenario, the doable scenario, and the hair on fire scenario. And I'll explain all of them step by step. The first job scenario that you might be in is the toxic job scenario. And this is you if right now you are in a job where you're already having, like, it's literally toxic. You're already having physical or mental health issues, or you're well on your way there. It's a freaking highway to burnout, right? I see this in so many corporate professions. There's so many toxic environments out there. It makes me so angry on your behalf. You work all hours of the day. There's a toxic culture. There's probably even a culture of bullying. And you might also have this feeling of just not fitting in, right? You outgrown that place and everything. It just results in you being totally exhausted. You got no mind space, no energy for making any progress on the side, on your career change, on your business. And in many cases, depending on your industry, like things like law, finance, IT, you can't even plan ahead because something is bound to come up and then you have to cancel it anyway. It's so blooming frustrating. And if you are really honest, my friend, even if you weren't wanting to change careers or to start your own business, you probably shouldn't be staying in that toxic job anyway, right? Because it's slowly killing you, right? So we ask the question here, how risky is it for you to stay? How risky is it for me to stay in this toxic job scenario? If I stay, will that negatively or positively impact my chances of actually changing careers or starting my own business? Now, in the toxic job scenario, the answer is yes, it will absolutely negatively impact. So you do need to quit that job. But, and this is important, not in the way you think. Unless you're a millionaire or you already have some savings put away, right? What I generally recommend with the toxic job scenario is that you quit. But you quit to go and get what I call a cash cow job or cash flow job. And I might do a different episode about the cash flow concept, which I developed ages ago, because it really, for a lot of my clients, been the secret ingredient that made it realistic for them to change after a certain age. In short, the cash cow job is using your current profession, your current qualifications to initially finance your career change or your first business. They provide the cash flow bridge to bridge the transition for you. So it means that you look for a similar job in a similar industry, but a job that is going to allow you what you don't currently have, i.e. to find the mental space and also the time to change careers or to start your own business on the side. Yes, I know you do want to leave that profession or line of work behind. However, what we're talking about here is a short-term solution to a longer-term scenario, right? So it's a short-term solution. That cash cow is going to be your bridge out of the thing you hate and into the one you love, all right? So just reframe it like that. That means that you quit that toxic job to move into a cash cow, to buy the mental space, to buy your health back, and to buy time to start on the side. That is very, very often what happens with a lot of my clients. But this is the HR person in me. Make sure you find that cash cow job, if at all possible, before jumping from your toxic job. You are, let me really repeat that. From an HR perspective, you have way more negotiation power when you are in a job than if you'd already jumped, okay? And the great news is, in this whole post-COVID world, there are a lot more jobs now where you can automatically buy more time because you can work from home, be location independent, contracting, flex hours. If you're great at what you do, you are and will always be in demand. So find that cash cow job so you can free up the focus to, really get cracking with that career change with that business. The great thing about moving into a cash cow job, which is not a commitment forever, it's just a short to medium term solution, is that you can also get into the mindset of, in this particular job, you're not going to take things personally. You're not going to get dragged into all the political shizzle. You're not going to, the political game, the bullying game. You're only there for a limited amount of time, and you're doing it for a very specific and very meaningful purpose, i.e. so that you can get that career change started, you can start that business. That is why you're in there. So a lot of the things that make your toxic job toxic, you can just literally cut out by doing this. And I so often get emails from my clients saying, hey, Rikke, I quit my job to go to the cash cow job. I call it cash cow because it sounds sexy. It sounds more fun than cash flow job, right? So now I can focus a lot more. I know my career change is going to happen. I know my business on the side is going to happen. Classic example, especially I see this with a lot of lawyers, a lot of finance people, IT, high-flying sort of careers, where they want to start their business, but literally in the job they have right now, it's so toxic. One person that comes to mind was Nicola that I work with. She was a corporate lawyer. with really demanding clients, really toxic, bullying working environment. And she really wanted to start her own business in the health space. She worked with me to design this business, but she knew that she was not going to be able to dedicate any time or energy to this in the current job that she had because it was a toxic job. So together with me, we designed a plan for how she could exit, and she found a job with less working hours, a lot less of a toxic culture. She even decided to move to the seaside and get a much better work-life balance. And the job she took might not have been something she would have gone for if she really wanted to continue a high-flying career in law, but she didn't. She wanted a change, so she jumped to that cash cow job so she could build, gain that time, gain that energy, gain that health to then get their business cracking on the side. And again, this is something I see with a lot of my clients. It's totally doable and it feels good, right? At least you're already solving one problem pretty much at the beginning, and it'll free up so much time, so much space, so much energy. And my friend, you deserve that. Okay, so the toxic scenario, yes, you do need to quit it, but you need to quit it for a cash cow, cash flow job. Okay, the second scenario is actually, let me just pause here for a moment, because I know that a lot of you listening might be in the toxic scenario, and I know how painful it is. I want you to know that it's absolutely possible for you to find something else, but where most people go wrong is they just try to find anything else, and they end up taking way lower paying jobs. They're just taking whatever, especially women. I've seen this again and again. So use the profession, even if you want to leave it, but you spend so long getting to a certain level with a certain amount of qualifications, use it for just a little bit longer, but in a non-toxic environment, okay? That's how the reality check so often happens. You always have a choice. You can absolutely do this. I'm sending you a big virtual hug if that's you right now. Okay. The second scenario is the doable scenario. And that's really what it says on the tin. This is you, the doable scenario. This is you if right now you're in the job that even though you don't want to be in that job or that profession or line of work anymore, and you do want to change careers or start your own business, you can actually stay there for a while. It's doable because you're paid. They will literally pay you. They're financing your career transition, right? And this is you if your current job allows you time and energy outside of work to focus on your business, your career change, and also to increase that amount over time. So no worries, you can stay, it's doable, as opposed to the toxic work scenario, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. I have never met a client who were in a perfect job. There's always a bastard boss or some issues going on, right? So if the question was, how risky is it for you to stay? Actually, it's not risky. It is absolutely doable, and it's going to actually positively impact your chances of making that transition because you have the cash flow, okay? So a couple of things for you here. The most important thing for you, and where people in the doable scenario, they sometimes actually end up going wrong, is that they get way too comfortable. It's, comfort addiction is the enemy of career change. You are in this comfortable, well-paid pain. So be very, very careful with two things. One is time. Be very careful with how you spend, or as I like to call it, with how you invest the time that you create outside of work. Be very, very clear and plan very carefully. Create the container, the consistent container for when you're going to work on your career change, when you're going to work in that business. Be really strict with yourself and get into a real habit, a real consistency in terms of when you do it. So you get the ball running, and it just takes off from there. Don't get too comfortable. Also, a hard deadline. Time frame this. Literally, this is why all of the programs that I do, they're time framed. Because if you give people forever, they will just never get their button gear. So you need to find a time container, and a hard deadline is the second thing for you to think about. You want to get into that mindset of giving yourself a hard deadline as to when you are going to quit that job. So give yourself a deadline to aim towards, so you know by when that you do need to have, for if you're changing careers, enough money on the side, whether that's through the business that you're starting, where it's starting to make money, so you can see that it's working, you're enjoying it, it's making money, and you can see that it's going to start being a real realistic way for you to make money. Or if you're making more of a career job change, you're starting, to get the interviews, you're starting to network, you're starting to train, and you might have saved up enough money to then go for the jump. It's really important that you think ahead in terms of what is it going to take for you to what is the figure, which is different for everyone. We can get into that in a different scenario, but it's really, really important for you that you do get yourself that hard deadline. When are you actually going to leave? And then also increase over time the amount of time that you spend on your career transition, on your business. This will happen organically if you do this properly, because it's a little bit like the diet thing. You know, when you start edging out the French fries and the burgers and you replace them with the greens, it's very much like that once you follow the right system for changing careers, the right framework, starting a business, is that slowly you will replace your old job with the new one or with the new business. And that means that organically you will need to spend more time on that career change, on that business. So it's also important that over time, you potentially ask for less working hours. And a lot of my clients do this, and I always recommend 3 days, not 5. And if you're good at what you do, because once you can see the other things take over, you will feel confident. And of course, you're good at what you do. That's why you listen to this podcast, right? So if you're a great employee, you're really, really good at what you do, you have so much more leverage that you could ever imagine. And I'm telling you this as a former HR manager who's recruited people for very senior, very credible jobs. Here's the thing. This is especially something that's happening in this new world of work, and especially post-COVID, hybrid work options, work from home, reduced hours. If it is so hard to especially retain, not just attract, but retain good people. So a lot of my clients are finding that in this new world of work, it's actually a lot easier to negotiate a 3-day work week than it was even just like 3 to 5 to 10 years ago. And this, just to be clear, I work with people in professions like law, marketing, finance, IT, you name it, where normally a part-time or reduced hours or working from home was like poo-pooed. It just didn't happen. And clients still have this kind of, that's never going to happen in my industry. That's not true. I see this happening a lot. You just got to negotiate it right and ask for it. People will rather retain you. I literally just had a client, right as I was starting to record this, who got it through. Hey, Rikke, I got the 3-day discussion tomorrow. That's corporate finance, okay? Law clients, all of that. That's really important that you do over time, obviously negotiate down the hours. And if that's not possible, then it might be at that stage that you take a cash cow job, contract, part-time, that kind of thing. It's absolutely possible. I'm just giving the big picture here. We can always go deeper with some of these things, okay? So that's you. If you're in the doable scenario, you can absolutely continue there while she gets started on the side and slowly have your new thing take over. But your current job is financing it. Ta-da! Okay. So you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, but Rikke, I feel a little bit different. And there is also a third scenario, because I know some of you might still be thinking, but where am I going to fit? So the third scenario is what I call the hair on fire scenario, And this was a scenario I was in myself, but it's not necessarily something that I recommend very often. And that's for legal reasons and also just in general. But sometimes it really is the only way, okay? And the hair on fire scenario is what I very often see with those of us who might be the more entrepreneurial types, passionate types, and that's whether you're on a job that's doable or totally toxic. You just feel like you have a window of opportunity to go and start that business. You have a window of opportunity right now to go make that career change, and you want to do it now, because if you don't, it's probably not going to happen. So you want to go for it. Your hair, it's literally, that's why I call it hair on fire. Your hair literally feels like it's on fire. You just need to go for it all in day one, right? And maybe that's the scenario you're in right now. What I would say though, just to be very, very clear, I would only recommend this scenario if you already know exactly what is the career or the business you want to create and get into, you're getting professional advice, rather than you hoping that by jumping, you'll somehow find out, right? I will repeat, I often see people who jump way too early before getting clarity or professional advice. That's not what we're talking about, because you might end up in an even worse toxic scenario on the rebound with a knee jerk, okay? So this option, I would only recommend if you actually know what you want or you're getting professional advice. So if we were to ask, how risky is it for me to stay in my current job? If I stay, will that negatively or positively impact my chances of actually changing careers or starting my own business? And if you're the sort of hair on fire scenario, you know that you just need to go, right? If you do, again, make sure you have the money side sorted. Make sure you don't burn any bridges with your current employer, with recruiters. Don't burn bridges with your network. Continue to be the beautiful, nice person that you are, so that if shizzle hits the fan, you can go back, just in case things might not work out the way you thought, or if it takes longer. And this is so important. There's nothing wrong with at any stage in the career transition, taking any kind of job or contract. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We all have to take care of ourselves financially, and you do what you need to do, okay? But what I also would say is if you jump, and this is especially the case for those of you who might be starting your first business, promise me that if you jump, you do not waste your time doing vanity stuff. Here's what I mean by that. I see people jump and then they spend months and years fiddling to make sure they have a pretty website or a pretty Instagram account or a funky looking business card or at that stage, potentially unnecessarily branding. I really want to make sure that, especially if you're starting your first business, make sure you focus on stuff that actually makes money, that actually makes you test drive, whether you enjoy it, whether it's right for you, whether you can actually get the results that you want for your clients. Focus on money-making activities, focusing on working with those clients, on running experiments. This is so important. Don't focus on the pretty unnecessarily stuff. Focus on getting real market feedback. Focus on money-making activities, right? This is so important so that you don't spend way too much time on fluffy stuff, on not making money, on just burning money, and then you're going to freak out and potentially go back to something even worse. I want you to be successful, to focus on the right things and to make money and to just create that incredible career, that incredible business, right? And here's the thing, again, if you're in the hair on fire scenario and it doesn't work out, or if you realize that it takes more time, then you can always go back and get a cash flow, a cash job, a cash cow job scenario. So you can continue to create what you want. So there you go. There is a scenario for everyone. Remember, the litmus test, the question to ask is, how risky is it for you to stay where you are right now? If you are in the toxic scenario, you need to leave. But you need to find that cash cow job first. If you're in the doable scenario, you can likely stay for a while longer, but start, as your transition takes off to negotiate down on the hours or even potentially take a cash cow job. If your hair is on fire and you already know what it is you want to do and you're focused on the money-making activities, then, or on the qualifications, whatever it is that you need to do, then you know what you need to do. Just make sure you look into the finances too. So make that decision. And let's see, let me know what you decide. Let me know if you're finding this episode helpful. Now, if you need help deciding these things, figuring out in your unique scenario what makes most sense, remember, that's pretty much what's baked into most of my programs. Because it's not just about figuring out what else you do want to do instead, but also what to do about your current scenario. You can find out about the career change programs that I have over at thecareerchangepodcast.com. So that's it for today. Let me know if you like this episode. And also what I would say, listen back again, pen in hand, for even more value. And a reminder here towards the end, nobody has to quit their job in order to start their career change or to start their own business on the side. And this is so important. You can absolutely do it, even at your age, with all of the things that you might have going on in your life. The reality check that I've given you here is there are ways to finance it. And remember, this is just a small look at some of the things that happens. There is a lot more to it. There's a lot more things we can go deep in. But remember, you do not have to quit your job in order to start that career change or to start your own business on the side. And also remember, a career transition is a process. It's not a one-off event. It takes time, and time takes money, so take really good care of yourself. But like I said, that also means there are no excuses for you. You can get started right now, but let's make sure you are in the best scenario for getting started, i.e. how risky is it for you to stay where you are right now. Now, if you enjoy this podcast, of course, let me know, subscribe, share with your friends, and then make sure you come over to thecareerchangepodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.